Potato chip manufacturer states that only 10% of its bags are underweight. A quality inspector randomly checks 120 bags and finds that 18 of them are underweight. Test the manufacturer's claim at the alpha equals 0.01 significance level and check any necessary conditions to complete this test. Okay. So because we're talking about a certain number of bags that are underweight out of a total number of bags, we have a proportion going on here. We only have one proportion listed, so this is going to be a one proportion z-test. And so in the calculator, that's going to be one prop z-test. Things that they mentioned, we've got an x up here of 18. And the total number of bags was 120, so that's our n. And so if we wanted to talk about the proportion part, the p hat, that would be the x value over the n value. And we'll take that 18 over 120 to figure out if I can actually do this test. So 18 out of 120 is 0.15. And so we need to take the p times the n and make sure that's bigger than 5. So I'm going to take 0.15 times 120, and we get 18. So we're cool. That's bigger than 5. But then we also need to check the q hat. And so remember, we can get the q hat by doing 1 minus the p hat. So 1 minus 0.15 is going to give us 0.85. And so 0.85, we're going to go ahead and multiply that by n as well, which is 120, and we get 102. So both the n times the p and the n times the q are bigger than 5, so we've checked to make sure that we're allowed to do this test. Okay. The other number that they gave us was an alpha, and it's a small alpha. We have a 0.01. Null and alternative hypothesis for this test. We are doing just a one proportion z-test. So that means that we're going to say either the proportion is what they claimed, which 10% of the bags are underweight, or it's just saying test if the manufacturer's claim is true. It's not saying that there's more than that or less than that. So we're just going to say the proportion is not equal to the 10%. Okay. Test statistic, because it's a proportion, we're definitely going to get a z, and we're going to go get our p. So in the calculator, we're going to look for one proportion z-test. That's going to be number 5. And the value that we want to enter here is 0.10. The x value for this problem is 120. Oh, sorry, that's our n value. Our x value is the 18. There we go. Our n value is 120. And we want not equal to for the alternative hypothesis. So we'll go ahead and hit calculate. Okay, so we've got a z of 1.83 approximately, and our p value is 0.068 all around it. Okay. So p-value compared to alpha in this case, our alpha is about 1 penny, our p-value is almost 7 pennies, so the p is bigger this time. So if the p-value is greater than our alpha, this is going to be our first fail to reject. The null hypothesis. Okay. And so if we failed to reject the null hypothesis, we're going to start with there is not sufficient evidence. Or another way to say that is there's insufficient evidence. You could say that as well. But I'm going to say there is not sufficient evidence at the 1% level to suggest this alternative hypothesis. So we always look at the alternative hypothesis whether we accept or reject. So when I say there is not sufficient evidence at the 1% level to suggest, I still am going to come here and I'm going to say that the proportion of chip bags that are underweight is different from 10%. So that was the manufacturer's claim. So sometimes you'll see people say, instead of this, they might say there is not sufficient evidence at the 1% level to suggest that the proportion of chip bags that are underweight is different from the manufacturer's claim. You could say that instead of different from 10%, because if you go back up to the top, it said that the manufacturer states only 10% are underweight. So there's just not sufficient evidence to say that it's different than what the manufacturer said.